I was on the road. I get this phone call from a source.
Yes, sir.
He says, look, you're not gonna believe this. There are new rumors. The NCAA is going to announce a new list of allegations against Ole Miss, and it's gonna be bad. This time the investigation is focused on Hugh Freeze's football program. Rumor has it that the lead witness for the NCAA's case is Leo Lewis, a star sophomore at rival school Mississippi State. But there's still a lot of speculation as to whether he's the source of these allegations, until Leo Lewis himself tweets a GIF of the Joker clapping from The Dark Knight. Now, those watching, this seems to mock the ongoing misfortune of Ole Miss. But now everyone can put two and two together. And what Leo Lewis doesn't realize is that there are lawyers gathering evidence against him, and they don't find this very funny. It took me 5 years to answer some of these questions. Who sabotaged Laramie Tunsil?
It's a 5-year-long soap opera. You couldn't write it better.
What causes corruption in college sports?
Bombshell would be an understatement tonight in Oxford.
Why do players keep getting targeted?
There's been cheating in college sports since the dawn of time.
And what is a bagman?
Follow me down to Jordan Street. God's gonna trouble the water.
It's been 5 years since I started investigating this NCAA case against Ole Miss, and it's been a year since what we now call the first notice of allegations. And now here comes the second notice of allegations. And this is the real bomb. This is the real damage. And it's based almost entirely off of Mississippi State linebacker Leo Lewis's testimony.
They're charged with 21 total violations, 14 are level 1.
Level 1 violations are deemed the most serious by the NCAA. According to bylaws, these violations denote a severe breach of conduct. Violation of the Head Coach Responsibility Act, which is now against Hugh Freeze. Now you're looking at lack of institutional control. Lack of institutional control is considered the most severe charge the NCAA can hand down. In the 1980s, Southern Methodist University in Texas, known as SMU, got caught paying 13 players along with other offenses and received what's known as the death penalty.
If you can successfully prove that a school lacks institutional control, you can SMU them. You can squash your football program.
SMU lost 55 scholarships. They were banned from all bowl games for 2 seasons, and their top football players transferred to other schools, essentially shutting down the football program. Now, with the second notice of allegations, it appears the NCAA has enough evidence to virtually end the Ole Miss football program. So things aren't looking great for Ole Miss, and nothing could make Mississippi State fans happier than the prospect of their rival school's program going up in flames. Within hours of the release of the new allegations, Leo Lewis takes to social media again and decides to stoke this very deep rivalry. One of the greatest moments of bravado in this entire story, Leo Lewis goes on Twitter and he posts a famous GIF of Heath Ledger as the Joker in The Dark Knight clapping as this amended NOA drops and Ole Miss looks to be in serious, serious trouble. Why would Leo Lewis do this? Why would he antagonize any party involved in this investigation? I think Leo Lewis puts that tweet out because I think he's young. I think he's brash. I think he got caught up in the vitriol of the rivalry. And student athletes don't get a lot of agency in college football. They're told what to do, how to say things. I think it was a moment in which he got to lash out and say, you know what? I talked, fuck you.
I think it's kind of badass, honestly. Like, this kid's being put at the center of this investigation and all this stuff's going on. And what's so interesting about his decision to post this is, you know, when the notice of allegations drops, there's never any student names in it. People have pretty good ideas of who it might be. He's referred to as student athlete 39, but no one really knew exactly who it was. Then Lewis posts the Joker clapping, and, you know, people put 2 and 2 together, the message boards light up, and it's become clear to everyone that Leo Lewis is working with the NCAA to screw over his rival. If you're an Ole Miss fan, there has been years of frustration about the NCAA treating them unfairly. Why are they fixated on us? Why don't they leave us alone? There's all this anger, there's all this pent-up frustration, there's all this rage, and all of a sudden they have someone they can focus on. So now they erupt on Leo Lewis.
Leo, you're a narc, first of all, and you're not that good of a linebacker anyway.
He is public enemy #1 in Mississippi, and I even think for a lot of Mississippi State fans, they're saying, whoa, Leo, like, what are you doing?
Where are the people that are like, hey, man, you're not gonna be a kid forever. One of these days, you're gonna have to face the consequences for this. Stop.
So while Leo Lewis is being pilloried by Ole Miss fans, the university responds to these new allegations by throwing together a sort of faux press conference. It's really just one formal statement. And if you ever want to convince a journalist that you're guilty of something, you'll fabricate a giant public statement in which no journalist, or anyone else, can question you at all. No one knew about this so-called press conference until it was posted to YouTube.
Good afternoon. I'm Ole Miss Chancellor Jeff Fitter, and I'm here with Vice Chancellor for Intercollegiate Athletics Ross Bjork and head football coach Hugh Freeze.
We agree that evidence exists to support some but not all of the events alleged. We will vigorously defend the university against those allegations that we believe are not appropriately supported, including that we lacked institutional control and that our head coach did not promote an atmosphere of compliance or monitor staff in our football program.
To be honest, I don't think I've ever seen such a ludicrous PR stunt, and it just makes Ole Miss look that much worse. So what does Ole Miss do? They self-impose a scholarship restriction, and they give themselves a one-year bowl ban.
The university is self-imposing a one-year postseason ban on the football program for the 2017 season.
Because at that moment, it's a tactical move publicly to say, we screwed up, we did some bad things. We believe we did this much wrong. The NCAA believes we did this much wrong. And they stood by Hugh Freeze this entire time.
Contrary to the allegations, I have demonstrated throughout this entire process that I have strong record of promoting compliance and monitoring my staff. The support you and Ross have given me throughout this has been unwavering. For that, I'm grateful.
Hugh Freeze maintains what he always has, that he and the program are clean as can be. But when they get that second notice of allegations, Ole Miss realizes the NCAA isn't fucking around anymore. And there's no way that the Rebels could fire their head coach without looking completely guilty and risk losing their entire program. They now have to publicly come out and defend Hugh Freeze twice. They can't do what they did with Barney Farrar. They can't claim he was a rogue agent. And they can't blame these allegations on Houston Nutt at all, because they allegedly happened solely under Freeze's watch. They've now aligned themselves with Freeze. They have no choice. That's why they don't fire Freeze. But if they're gonna prove the NCAA's allegations are false, that only leaves one person to discredit. That's Leo Lewis. They even end up citing Leo's Joker tweet as evidence in their written defense, an attempt to discredit him as nothing more than a rival player with an axe to grind. As details of the case leak outside the arena of college athletics under the NCAA's jurisdiction, boosters affiliated with the Ole Miss program get involved. Yahoo Sports reports a bunch of anonymous leaks naming redacted booster number 8 as Rebel Rags. And they have a lot of money on the line. Rebel Rags, with the assistance of one of the most prominent law firms and prominent lawyers in the state of Mississippi, Ole Miss alums, file a suit against Leo Lewis. Against a kid, suing him for future potential earnings, claiming disparagement, claiming loss of revenue, harm to their business. Suddenly the stakes are that much more real. Leo initially came forward as a witness for the NCAA because he was promised under the administration's limited immunity clause that as long as he told the truth, he wouldn't be punished by the NCAA, and his player eligibility would remain intact. But now Leo Lewis is a defendant in civil court. This is a genius move by the Rebel Rags lawyers in the Ole Miss network. Why? Because it's a way for Ole Miss interests to litigate this case in a real court of law. It's a way for their lawyers to subpoena Leo Lewis and anyone else connected to the case, including the NCAA itself.
Our purpose was to try to blow this thing out of the water, to stop it. And I thought, if there is anybody at the NCAA that's really interested in getting it right, as they like to say, if I gave them the information and the supporting documents, the proof that these kids had made this stuff up out of whole cloth, Maybe they would recant. Maybe they would just drop this allegation.
But all this litigation comes at the expense of a student athlete and his family who have no money. He has to be the only college football player in America right now who's already in the hole, who hasn't even been drafted yet, but could potentially have to pay back most or all of it because he helped the NCAA. So now there's a civil lawsuit against a college football player who has served as the primary witness for the NCAA against Ole Miss. But Ole Miss has other problems. The following month in July, former Ole Miss head coach Houston Nutt files a lawsuit against the university for allegedly defaming his character after the first set of NCAA allegations.
Nutt says Ole Miss officials created a smear campaign to deflect information on the NCAA case.
There's still going to be stuff that comes out. We've got a legal case going on now with a former coach. I don't know anything about that, really.
And on top of all this, Mississippi State's fan base have been working their connections overtime to hit their rival when they're down.
I kind of joke with people. I said, you know, there's going to be some Ole Miss people try to kill me. This is something that impacts the rivalry for generations to come.
A die-hard Mississippi State fan and media personality, Steve Robertson, takes it upon himself to find any information he can about Hugh Freeze and Ole Miss. He collaborates with ousted Ole Miss head coach Houston Nutt's lawyer. Together, they get their hands on Hugh Freeze's university-issued phone records, which provide them with bombshell evidence of an entirely different kind of transgression.
There were some phone records for Ross Bjork and Hugh Freeze and a few other staffers. And lo and behold, I ended up finding a phone call that changed the football landscape in the state of Mississippi, perhaps forever.
Bombshell would be an understatement tonight in Oxford. A call was made from the university-issued phone of Hugh Freeze to a number connected to an escort service.
And at first I thought it had to be a typo, or perhaps my eyes are playing tricks on me, and so I go back and double-check the records, and sure enough, it's correct. I felt it was important to get it out there.
Freeze's resignation announced at 6:45 this evening.
Again, Ole Miss scrambles into damage control. And now, there's only two of them left at the table.
This is a sad day for the University of Mississippi.
This guy is a Christian celebrity. He has designed himself to be this. All of a sudden, on top of everything else that's happened here, right? This investigation officially now has everything. Because now it's got these allegations of sexual impropriety by the one person in college football holier than everyone else in the entire sport. If things are what they seem to be, the one guy ever so washed in the blood of the Lamb is calling out for rub and tugs when he goes out on recruiting trips. This is a massive curveball for everyone involved.
I think it's almost poetic justice that a Mississippi State guy is the one that found the call. And quite frankly, if the in-state print media had found the call, he's probably still the head football coach, because I don't think they would have reported it, to be honest with you.
So now Ole Miss is not only the target of a serious mounting NCAA investigation, they're also totally disgraced.
It's just so easy to make fun of Mississippi. I mean, I really shouldn't, but, you know, it's the old joke at Ole Miss. They were trying to have a nativity scene at Ole Miss. They had to call it off. They couldn't find 3 wise men or a virgin.
At this point, the NCAA has set a date for what's called the Committee on Infractions hearing, September 11th.
The Committee on Infractions, or COI, basically acts as the judge and jury in the NCAA's version of a courtroom, where investigators are allowed to present their case, schools are allowed to defend themselves, and then they reach a decision. You know, this is basically the date that we've got circled in red marker on the calendar. This is the day where everything will be decided.
I'm up in Oxford right now. What have you heard? I'm working on the NCAA investigation, okay?
Stephen is on the phone every day talking to people about, you know, what is the NCAA gonna present? What are they gonna push for? There's also the question of if Leo Lewis is actually gonna show up that week.
Leo Lewis has been requested by the NCAA to participate at the hearing. And as far as we know, this is the first time a student athlete has ever been asked to appear at the committee proceedings. But Leo is now the center of a civil lawsuit, so the last thing that he would want to do is go on the record again with the NCAA to potentially further incriminate himself. And yet, that might be exactly what the NCAA wants him to do in order to prove that Ole Miss is guilty once and for all. Meanwhile, Ole Miss lawyers request that Leo Lewis show up at the Committee on Infractions hearing. Ole Miss wants to fight all the Leo Lewis stuff. At the same time, Leo's lawyers are scrambling to keep him the hell away from this. But if he bails on the hearing, he risks pissing off the NCAA, who ultimately still have the power to take away his eligibility. The irony of this is that the NCAA was set up to protect student athletes. The NCAA was first created because so many football players were dying of head injuries. It was the NCAA who made helmets and other safety gear a requirement to keep players from getting hurt. But in 1955, there was a big story. A player dies on the field, and his widow sues for workers' compensation benefits.
To shield all the schools from liability, the NCAA's first executive director, Walter Byers, coins the term student athlete, basically to make explicitly clear that this is not a professional athlete. So schools don't have to pay them or pay for them.
Television started pumping lots of money into sporting events. By making them student athletes, they are not skilled labor. They are not people generating lots of money. They're just students. So it's an ingenious term to keep the revenue from the athletes who are actually generating the revenue.
These billion dollar TV deals, right? $1 million licensing agreements. Apparel being sold, jerseys on the campus bookstore with the player's name removed in some instances, but it's his number and it's his jersey. He's not seeing the revenue from that.
When Walter Byers is finally retiring at the end of his career, he gives this speech where he turns against the entire concept of the student athlete that he created.
The management of intercollegiate athletics stays in place, committed to an outmoded code of amateurism. And I attribute that to, quite frankly, to the neo-plantation mentality that exists on the campuses of our country and in the conference offices.
But Byers' speech didn't really do anything to change the overall mentality. Today, the NCAA still oversees the same campuses and conference offices that are reaping a ton of profit, while players like Leo Lewis aren't getting paid anything.
Basically, the entire world, everyone involved in this investigation descends on Covington, Kentucky for this September 11th hearing in a pretty nondescript hotel room's conference center.
Ole Miss is there, there's security guards posted around the building, they've got local sheriff's deputies out protecting the conference room, and it's closed off to the public. I was told by an NCAA employee this has never happened before. But I was checked in at the hotel, so I could see people coming and going from the conference room. I was able to gather some information from multiple sources about what was going on inside the hearing at various times of the day. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of anticipation because we're finally going to have some clarity. Clarity about what actually happened with Leo Lewis, clarity about what the NCAA is actually going to pursue with regard to punishment for Ole Miss. And then Leo Lewis shows up. He doesn't walk through the front door of the hotel lobby. He's sort of whisked in from the side, basically to hide the media attention. They go into the hotel, they go into the conference room, and the doors close. And here's what we know about what happens in that room. The NCAA lays out their case against Ole Miss. And during this process, Leo is extensively questioned by the NCAA committee members. So according to multiple sources, Leo becomes agitated. He's visibly distressed. He slumps in his seat. He gives inaudible responses. Several people have to ask him to repeat himself. And at one point, he even puts his head down on the table.
He's a kid. He's in a room with a bunch of dudes in suits who are asking him really tough questions about something he said months ago.
Every single time Leo opens his mouth, there's contradictions, inaccuracies. The emotion changes in the room. And all of a sudden, Lewis is, to a lot of people on both sides, unraveling. In the days after the hearing in Covington, I start hearing these rumors from sources connected to the case that there are major problems looming for the NCAA. So I meet with my editorial team in New York to discuss exactly where we're at in this investigation. So there are inconsistencies in the testimonies. Some of his stuff doesn't add up specifically. He's either having a tough time remembering things, or he's maybe fudging some of his stories as they start to overlap. Specifically, how much money he spent on things. And there's over $1,000 discrepancy in how much cash he spent.
What's so trash to me about all of this is it's $10,000. Like, in the grand scheme of college football, $10,000 is like nothing.
Mom gets money so they can put a down payment on a new house, all right? What's important to note is that in the transcripts, Leo admits his family was about to lose their original house to the bank. He does buy a car. It's a used car, a Chrysler 300. He buys clothes for himself, he buys clothes for his family, and clothes for his daughter. The amount of money that we're talking about is so inconsequential when you think about a year's salary in America. He can't afford to buy the whole car, he can't afford to buy the whole house. If you look at him as committing a crime and what he did with his cash, as he tries to account for this cash over and over again, it becomes just overwhelmingly sad. And on top of all this, he can't say exactly how or when he received the money that he got from the Ole Miss bagman. His time of day keeps changing. First, it's sometime in the noon after school, and then it's 5 or 6 p.m. The other issue for the NCAA is that Leo Lewis's credibility is being called into question by the ongoing Rebel Rags lawsuit. Leo Lewis claimed that he was provided gifts from Ole Miss in the form of a gift card at Rebel Rags, and that they removed censors from the clothing he was given. Now, according to the lead attorney representing Rebel Rags, this isn't even possible.
There's never been a theft control system in place at Rebel Rags where you took the buttons or whatever out of the garment to keep from triggering the alarm. There are no $500 transactions of anything that, regardless of how it was paid for or done, on the days that Mr. Lewis claimed he got their gratuities.
There's one more thing that complicates this entire case. This alleged gift, which may have happened in the noon or may have happened in the evening. I spoke to the bagman about this. He says it never happened.
I don't know. I can't even keep up with it now because I don't even fucking read the shit because I know it's totally wrong. But if you think that I would give some 18-year-old kid 15 grand, whatever the number is, without a letter of intent, that I would on stage just pay some kid that had his hand out to everybody, I mean, that's insulting my intelligence. I mean, come on.
We're now just weeks away from the Egg Bowl, the yearly showdown between Ole Miss and Mississippi State, notorious for bloody riots on and off the field.
This game means so much to everybody in Mississippi.
The powder keg has been packed by the NCAA, pitting these two schools against each other. And now that rivalry is about to explode.
This rivalry spun completely out of control.
In the weeks to come, we see a painfully stunning reversal on the field.
Crazy game. And
the NCAA delivers a scandalous conclusion to a 5-year saga.
Who's going to get sanctions first, Trump or Ole Miss?
And at long last, we reveal the true identity of the bagman.
He thought being there meant something, like he was a big timer. It really means he was stupid.